Great, that was a lovely panel. I wanted to say that I love how Jose Maria makes intelligent, like super smart questions and fast questions. In my panel, there will be only fast questions. There are no smart questions in this panel, right? That's not my specialty. Cool, we're gonna introduce more people. Wow, that's a lot of water. Great, I'm gonna introduce, well, you know how it works. You did it before, you did it perfectly, by the way. And people in the back, there are like a few seats here and there, so you might wanna sit down. This second panel is about, okay, we know the theory. We know startups should collaborate with corporates and the other way around, but how the fuck do we make that happen, right? It's like, there's a lot of talk, but we need more people who just walk the talk as well, right? So in this panel, we've got 3 people who come from the corporate side, although they've been founders themselves, right? So they will be able to weigh in with their vision as both a founder and corporate person. And we've got another kick-ass entrepreneur on stage. So please, at the count of 3, I want you to stand up and give the warmest rockstar applause for all these people. So 1, 2, 3, on your feet. Everybody, get up. Come over, come over. This is for you. Come. Give it to Ferran, I'm gonna start with him. Great. Let me get closer. As I said, like there's going to be fast questions, no intelligence questions now. I think Jose Maria stole the show. He did really well. Huge effort by his side. That's how this panel is gonna work, okay? So if you're not fast, I'm gonna cut you off. If you say bullshit, I'm gonna cut you off. If you do a sales speech, I'm gonna cut you off. And if I don't like your answer, I'm gonna cut you off. But you're welcome to join the panel, right? Let's start with no, I'm just kidding. Let's just get this started. We're talking about innovation, right? Innovation, I think, personally, it starts inside the person, right? It needs somebody to spark innovation inside the company. And we've got one person in this panel who's especially innovative and creative. Not saying that the rest are not, they are. But Ferran has been a person who has reinvented himself many, many times in the past years. So I'm gonna start with you, Ferran, because so you started working in the health sector, you worked at a venture builder, you've been a lecturer, you've done product at Telefonica, you created a couple of ventures, now you're working at a tobacco company, and yet you don't smoke. So,
and I've never.
Being a it seems that you have been jumping from sector to sector, so maybe that gives you a lot of perspective and things that you can use from one sector to the other. How do you think that's helping you in your daily job?
It helps me a lot, and it frustrates me a lot. So from one side, it helps me to see which areas should we focus on. What I learned from a startup is that that's gonna sound bullshit, but believe me, it's not. Sky is the limit. So when you don't have resources, you'll find yourself your way to do something if you don't have the means. When you're in a corporate, you have a lot of resources, and it's not only money, that people tend to underappreciate that are extremely highly valuable. When I think about the difference between startups and corporates, I think about the way we manage the resources, the way we manage the time. I would say the unity, the way we are a team in a corporate versus a startup. But what it has really helped me a lot was when I saw how we could make something happen, when you bring that energy and that will to, okay, I need to survive, into a corporate, and you use the means that a corporate has best to a startup, you can get a lot of things done that most people from outside tend to think corporates are bad. Or people in corporate think, okay, startups are nice, but they don't bring things in the bottom line. So when I was doing each step of the way, changing from one company to the other, sometimes I didn't see the reason why, but now when I look back, everything that I've done makes sense to understand why I could bring into Philip Morris. So as you were saying, I'm working in a tobacco company, ever smoked a cigarette in my life, but I see the vision and the means, and when I heard what they were willing to do or what we are willing to do, I believed in it. And that drove me to do the previous projects in the past. So it was not because of that vision, that willingness of we want to change something, and they believe in it, and they act on it. It's the only reason why you can really, in a corporate, do something that maybe in a startup seems obvious.
Great, can you share one specific example of something you took from one sector and applied in the other? Let's say from the health company you work for, then I applied this to Telefonica, something like really specific that work across sectors.
Sorry?
Great.
Okay.
No pressure, all right.
Oh, we can, right?
Right, you can do it,
Yeah.
you can do it.
No, because I work for Vueling, but I also work for Chanel in Paris, which is like luxury and low-cost airlines. So at Vueling, we test RFID to track luggage, but we can also use this technology to track fashion in the boutiques in Chanel.
Great.
So
That gave
Now
you
you
enough
had
time
time
to
to
think
think.
about something.
I would say that one of the things we applied at Philip Morris was the way we scout trends. So when I was at the Venture Builder, one of my goals was to see, okay, what else is going on somewhere else that we can not copy but apply here that has not been applied yet. And now it's something that I'm doing nowadays. So when I want to see what are we going to do in 20 years from now, the first thing I do is connect with the people that are building new things, regardless if it has an application for Philip Morris on the short term. So I don't think about the impact of the P&L. I think about what are they doing that I can learn from and what I can give them to. And that's something that I applied regardless if I'm in a corporate or a startup.
Great. In contrast with Ferran, I wanted to introduce you, Simone, but you did it yourself. You've been mostly involved with the flying industry. You know, you've been working at General Electric's aviation. You had a 16-year-long spell at KLM. Then you switched to Vueling, although now you're also collaborating with Chanel. I wanted to say, in comparison with him, do you think specialization is a big thing of what you're doing at Vueling, and how do you evaluate?
no, because
Okay,
I think
great. Next question. Just kidding.
No, if you look at an airline, it's a very broad industry, right? So I worked at engineering and maintenance, which is very technical, but I also worked at operations and in commercial. So I think looking at KLM is like 33,000 employees. They're all like small companies in there. So, and then now I founded my own company. That's why I am able to work for different kind of companies. Yeah.
And I wanted to ask also, so in regards to this, I think there's one similarity between what you do at Vueling and what Jordi does at Damm, is that there's a lot of small subsectors and verticals within the same kind of company. It's a huge corporation, and for instance, the beer industry has got distributors, there's got logistics, there's got storage, there's got production, there's got food manufacturing or drinks manufacturing. Same with the airports and airlines, right? So how do you prioritize in your day-to-day which ones are going to work best? Which KPIs are you using to say, okay, we'll focus more on the luggage collection instead of checking people into the plane?
My two main drivers are, one, we do a lot of research on customer pains. So what is actually a pain for our customers, and not what we think at headquarters, but we observe. That's one. And two, there is so much resistance sometimes in a corporate that wherever we find collaboration, it's easier to work in that area. So maybe it's not the biggest topic of the company, but at least it gives the least resistance. So it's that balance.
Can you talk about this specific example? We've been talking about one thing that let's deep down in one specific example of innovation they've done at Vueling, right? Which is one that they do luggage collection before your flight, especially for early flights. It's really good. And it drives customer satisfaction up. It brings extra revenue into the company. So can you talk about this specific example as something more practical and down to earth?
I think it's an interesting, very practical example on how things work with startups and corporates. Yeah. So we created a vision on the future airport experience. So how will it look like in 2025 when you go to the airport with us and fly with us? So one of the elements is that you don't have the hassle with luggage anymore. So there are startups offering this service. So we started to experiment with that in the summer. So we have a customer who shared with us a 5-minute video on how happy she was with this service. Right. And that it's the only reason for her to fly with Vueling. So but we have two main sponsors within the company. So that's commercial, because extra revenue, and it's customer experience. So because it boosts extra customer experience. But now we want to, I say, deploy this solution. So I want to bring it from the innovation team to the business. But commercial is not embracing it because it's not a $1 million business, and customer experience is not embracing it because it's not like boosting NPS with 10 points. So here we are. We have a brilliant solution. Our customers are happy with that, and probably we're going to kill it.
How long is it going to take before airlines and airports figure out that flying sucks? Like the entire experience of like going into the airport, security check, take your laptop out, take your boots off, everything. When are you gonna disrupt that? Who's gonna do it?
I say that all the time. Because I also think my job as when you lead innovation is to ask these kind of provoking questions. When I have to go to Madrid from Barcelona, I am not allowed to take the train, but I do it anyway.
All right. You're disrupting the...
No, but it's customer research.
We're going to talk about that. Great. Jordi, maybe you had time to think about, we've been talking about this, the whole chain in the industry of, in your case, beverages, but there's also a lot more involved in them. So how do you select which parts of the entire value chain do you invest more in? What's your drive?
First, I wanted to thank you for having me here, since you're going to cut the bullshit, you know.
Yeah.
But thank you for having me.
That's not bullshit so far. You're doing well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we have two main priorities when innovation. One is all related to sustainability and efficiency of the supply chain. That, by the way, is a very long supply chain, from the fields to maltery, the plant, then the distribution, then the clients and the consumers. You know, the clients are the bars, so the supermarkets, and the consumers are the people who consume the beer and the water and other things that we do at Damm. That would be one, and the second is actually related to what I was just telling you now, is one of the things that I've just bumped into it that I didn't know before signing to Damm is how away we are from the final customer. So we need to know, we should know much better the details of the final customer, the ones that really drink the beer, right? And this is something that we know, and this is a very, very, very task ahead, you know.
Because you're going to tell me that, like Ferran, you didn't know anything about beer before you joined this, right?
In my case, I didn't really, and in our case, in some cases, we were not even allowed to talk to our clients. So instilling that mentality, because legally we were not allowed to talk to anyone about tobacco because it could be seen as, it would be seen as promotion of cigarettes, so it's simply not allowed, the way that we also in some countries we cannot do publicity. So in bringing that mentality of now we need to talk to the consumer for whatever fruit you're building, it's really hard, but it pays off because at the end of the day you need to know who are you building what for. And so for that's crucial, but it was really hard.
After having introduced the three of you, let's say the corporates, although at the same time ex-founders, I want to introduce Cristina as well because she's the CEO and founder of Cledara SaaS solution to manage subscriptions in one place, and you're based in the UK. That's a very interesting thing because I want to hear from you what's the contrast between being somebody who's a local here, but you're based in the UK, you're targeting companies both here and the UK. Which differences do you see in the corporates and the companies you want to sell to?
So
cultural differences,
well, so I think actually not many, because when we deal with so at the moment we are dealing with BBVA here in Spain, and we are looking to find ways in which they will distribute our products to their customers, to their SMEs, and there we are dealing with mostly a foreign team, so I would say it's still somehow very, very English in mentality. So I wouldn't say there is much difference, but what I would say is that for any startup looking to deal with with corporates, don't make it your primary mission, because it will consume you before you actually close the deal, because I would say that the time that it takes to close that deal is going to be about 2 years, when that's probably the runway that usually startups have. And having been in a previous startup before as well, where we were dealing with MasterCard and Barclays, there it was mission critical for us to have those deals, because that was the only way in which we could operate in emerging markets to provide the unbanked in Africa with financial services. That was a very, very big learning for me, because you really need them, but equally you wish you didn't. So when we finally closed the deal and with them, what happened with Barclays at the time is that they essentially changed the whole management team, and there was nobody left in the company that knew what we did or why we were relevant for them. And that was very frustrating because we had spent really years closing that deal, and then all of a sudden we had to renegotiate everything. They were constantly changing the processes that we had previously agreed to, and essentially we were losing customers ourselves as a result of that. So it was very, very painful, I have to say, but we needed them, right? Because we needed them to operate. So then obviously the first thing you need to do is always have kind of plan B, what happens if that relationship doesn't work, and always keep working on that relationship, because for us it happened that the management team disappeared after we closed, the bank went up for sale, and and essentially we were starting all over again. So that was quite
really
painful.
Good people, right?
Yeah. Terrible.
Now you raise a really good point. There are three, when you're doing sales, right, or you're doing business development, they always say you shouldn't try to chase the elephants or the rabbits, you should go for the deer, right? Like the middle tier in contracts, because the elephant, well, first of all, can kill you and takes a long time to hunt down. Maybe you're gonna starve before you get that contract. But when you get it, you get food for a year. If you go for rabbits, they will tire you because you will have to chase them around, they're too small. You get them and you eat for half a day. They're not worth it, right? And you have to spread too thin. So how do you segment your potential customers? Do you do this? Do you focus on just one tier? Or what's the different strategies you follow in sales?
So at the moment we are in Cledara, we are quite small still, and even though our solution is something that corporates really want to get hold of, because they do have a lot of software subscriptions, lots of licenses everywhere, they are spending lots of money on software that is not being used. It's not something that we want to sell to yet, so we don't want to sell to corporates at this point in time, because we know that there is this massive lead time before you actually get somewhere, and you usually have to end up customizing your solution. So then what we decided to do is to really go for, okay, which are the customers that they really need our product today? These are technology companies using lots of software, which are small, you can sell quickly, you can iterate fast on the product because you're getting all that customer feedback very, very quick. And then at the same time, we do speak with those big corporates because they do have the time to speak with us, and they are very happy to give it to us, and they are happy having a meeting every month if we need to, so that we get more insights from the finance, the procurement, the IT. And this is very valuable as well, the fact that they have this time to give us, so that we can build a product for the future that will help them too, even though today we are definitely not selling to them yet.
I have one question for Ferran, perhaps the person who created more companies here. As I was surprised in the question that Jose Maria put there, I think in the first one, there was one of the options was proof of concept with real data, but I was expecting to see sales, because that's what keeps startups alive, right? Maybe it was there. I would suggest, if you want to do it for the next time, just put sales there, see if it changes, right? Because I think sales will get a lot more engagement. I wanted to ask you, what do you do at Philip Morris differently from your peers, just because you've been a founder when you're talking to startups? Do you cite more with them? Do you understand them more? Do you go around certain bureaucracy and paperwork or processes?
I love that question because, in fact, I've been in the other side suffering from it. I remember perfectly one case in a corporate where we were acting as a bank. So just that process, for example, was killing us. So what we try to do differently from my founder perspective is we try to see, first of all, what is the value I'm bringing to the startup and why do I want them? So am I getting from them learnings? If I'm going to just put money because it's part of my investment thesis, but it's not fitting in my strategic pillars, forget it. It's going to go nowhere. There's going to be no business owner. Next round, they're going to be struggling, or maybe the things do not go as good as they go, which is 90% of the cases, and it's part of the process. As we don't have a business owner, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to support you. Oh, sorry, the company's going to close down, or they're going to be bought by a really bad price from somebody else. And that's a real case, one after the other. What I try to do differently is, first, there's two things. One is ensure that there's a why and that the company understands why are we working with that company. And maybe it's a learning, maybe it's a proof of concept, maybe it's seeing something that we have never seen and we want to understand it. But also I need to give to the startup something that it's worth for them to work for me. If the only reason for them to work for me is money, in fact, I'm worthless and I'm as good as the next one next to me. I have to offer them something that is valuable. And the reason why, it's not only because it's on their interest, and it's not only because it's going to be good for their value as a startup. It means that I don't have an average startup. If I offer average elements, if I offer money or time or space, which I'm not saying it's bad, I'm competing against everybody. So I'm going to get everybody kind of a startup. If you want startups that are unique, that are willing to build things, offer them something that is unique. Sometimes people say, oh, don't show that outside. Sorry, we are sitting in tons of data. We are able to do nothing. So whenever I'm going to look for an AI startup, I'm going to make sure that they're able to use my data in a real case and build something useful for them or for me. Worst case, nothing happens. They learn, we learn. So that's what I'm really trying to make sure that happens when we work with corporate, with startups.
That's a great answer. In 10 seconds, this one's really quick because I wanted to ask Simone this one. But have you ever run into trouble for breaking some internal rule or policies in your company?
We were close. We found our way out. Let's say that sometimes we had engagement with companies maybe too early, which we were not supposed to work because maybe publicly we are not supposed to, or somebody could ask us, how the hell you are a tobacco company work with somebody about health trying to solve problems? Is because you want to understand that kind of problem and you want to sell more? The answer is no. So it means that sometimes you need to work with startups, even if you maybe are not supposed to, but you believe it's useful for everybody. And it's going to take time, and maybe that startup is just a partnership for the people to change the mentality within the company.
That was 25 seconds, but it was really good.
Okay,
so
you didn't get the time, sorry.
Simone, I wanted to ask you, because we've been talking about this when we prepare extensively this morning in a 5-minute call. So I wanted to ask about how do you find the right person in the corporation, right? So when you're a startup, you're trying to sell. We're getting from contact to contract, right? You know, corporates will try to block you from talking to the real, to the real person, the one who will sign off the contract. How do you do that as a founder, or have you gone around it and signed something on your own, or what's your advice for entrepreneurs here? To find the heretic in the company.
Yeah, no, for entrepreneurs, I think you have to find the crazy people who want to think with you. I think that's totally aligns with what you said. So the people who are in a corporate but understand how it is to have an own startup or entrepreneurs. Within a I don't know how I do that. It's sometimes lucky, you talk a lot, and then you see who has the heart on the right place, and some don't. And then I try to work with the ones who are supportive. It's not a good answer. I don't have the right advice on that. But some people just understand it, and some people don't. So.
Because one of the things, like when I'm selling to corporates, like I try to find the most entrepreneurial person in the corporate. Let's say I'm talking to Deloitte. I know they acquired this VR company 2 years ago, 3-4 years ago. That guy used to be a CEO. He was in my shoes. I'm probably just going to talk to him. It's going to make it easier. That's why I invited you all here tonight. So you wanted to say something here, Jordi? You wanted to add up?
Just to add up what Simone and Ferran were talking about. For me, one of the main problems that the main mistakes that the corporates are doing when talking to corporates, to startups, is that they don't put at the forefront people that speak the same language.
Right.
And there's something that I've seen in other corporations when I was working for startups, and there's something that, for example, that Laura did when he hired me. But it could be another example, but in this particular case, she knew that I came from the startup arena, that I could speak the same language, the same terms. I had a similar DNA, and for me, it's one of the, I think, is a very wise way to do the things. When you're talking to, or you try to, in my case, to try to establish your open innovation strategy.
Great. We'll go back to this, but you.
Yeah, I can add a little. Yeah, no, maybe as a startup, maybe you can also use LinkedIn and see who are corporate people who are active on LinkedIn and see how they write about startups. That's the way, I think, also to identify the right people to engage with.
That's very good. Let's go back to Jordi, because actually I wanted to comment on the fact that you studied journalism. You've been always related to PR and international relationships. You were at Wacky, part of the Rakuten group. You've been at Let's Bonus, that was sold to Living Social. You've been doing international relationships for Barcelona Tech City, among other ventures, right? Let's focus on the language, because you brought it up. That was really good. What's the red flags you see in startups when they are approaching you now that you're like, wrong question, wrong wrong message, right? Tone, maybe?
Yeah, first let me just saying that I study economics too. On top
okay.
of journalism.
But
so both
journalism
degrees.
too. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think when, let me tell you that the approach by LinkedIn has multiplied by 20, you know, since I work for Damm, you know, and mostly are they trying to obviously sell me products, and obviously it's a kind of a commercial approach from mainly startups. And what I've seen, you know, obviously is that sometimes they are pretty vague, or they don't really know who are they talking to. They're not specific, and you can see that they are shooting everyone, you know, with the same approach.
Like generic messages?
It's generic messages, you know, and there's a pretty, in my understanding, very big mistake. Probably because I've been in their place. That's why I put in their shoes.
Hello, brackets, name. I find you right.
No, they
like
even mix up with the name and etc. You know. Hello, Jose Maria.
Yeah. So you like to feel special. You want a dedicated
Well, I
message.
mean, at least you know, Jordi could be.
It could be nice. It could be nice.
nice.
What else? How about the tone? Like some startups, I think they fuck up in something very specific. They are too arrogant, right? Startups sometimes they go like, oh yeah, corporates, they're slow, they're dinosaurs, they're this and that. They're just talking shit about corporates. Yet, guess what, guys? You need the corporates, right? So because they bring you money. So what would be your advice in this kind of arrogant attitude for the young startups that perhaps is the first company you told me?
I think there's a word that I think it fits the most in this workflow. That is empathy.
Empathy. Great.
I think you know the startups need to be empathetic about talking to corporations. You know, they need to understand that they are not as flexible as them. They're not as agile, and the corporations likewise. You know, they should think the same. And I think it is there's a big mistake from the corporations. You know, to the fear of the unknown, the lack of power, the lack of control. Also, you know, it's very difficult and something maybe I'm standing too much, but it's very difficult from the corporate side sometimes to allocate it particular resources, because that's not KPIs very well defined, you know. And this is something when you're dealing with different business units with the company, you know, that's a concern that's been raised pretty often, you know. So I don't know. I think the best word to define is empathy.
Empathy is really good. Cristina, I want to hear from you, because one thing I really admire from you is like you got really crystal clear communication, as opposed to other founders who are like super vague or dispersed, or they're like even talking shit on Twitter, or they never communicate at all. You're like really precise. Seems like somebody, I don't know if somebody's mentoring you on that, but like, hey, here's my everyday, I post like something related to the industry. This is a success case we've done. Our message is always so articulate and precise and concise and direct. So how have you found out about how to improve your communication skills to attract the corporates?
Well, I was in a corporate before, so I was
helps.
working for a bank for many years before moving to the startup side, and that is where I really learned a bit what they were saying, the colleagues here, right? That you need to try to understand their position as well. So you cannot go in as a startup, hey, I'm here, I want to move fast, and I want you to move fast for me as well, because that's not going to happen. That's going to be a clash. Of course, you are trying to deal with the innovation departments, that they are those that are trying to move things a bit faster for you and help you navigate the organization. And I think that's what then helps you, these innovation departments, I think, are the ones that need to help the startups communicate to the language that the corporate that you're trying to deal with will understand and will respond to. And I think that's super important. Then in terms of all the other messaging around other things, not only about dealing with corporates, I think it's very, very important for any company really to know what you want and from whom, so that you can really target that message. And for example, we send updates on a monthly basis, which Àlex
really good,
receives, and we always ask. And we always say, okay, this is what we need this month. It might be connections to developers. It might be connections with marketing agencies. It might be help us meet people in this industry. And it's surprising how willing people are there to help. So it's worth asking and really knowing what you want to say and make sure that make the message super clear. I wanted to just touch on something regarding the POCs.
Sure.
I would say to corporates and startups that if possible for startups, never accept POCs that are not paid. Because otherwise you will just essentially spend a lot of time negotiating those. You'll go through that and it will go nowhere right after that potentially. So it's super important if a corporate is really determined to work with startups that they offer these paid POCs with super clear metrics on what success looks like, with the commitment of, okay, you will get a proper contract after the POC if you hit those success metrics that you agree beforehand.
Let me challenge you. Oh yeah. Let me challenge you on that one. What have you done specifically to turn a non-paid POC or a big company who said like, yeah, I'm going to do like proof of concept. I'm not going to pay you based on these metrics. Have you ever turned one of these companies into a paying customer like upfront? Because we need to end this bullshit. Like everybody needs to pay for stuff.
But the thing is, it's not that you need to do it on the first meeting. Okay, here is what I want, paid POC for this match.
Would be good, too.
It doesn't happen, unfortunately, for what we were saying. Companies or corporates work at a different pace. But what's important is to nurture that relationship. And if you are not talking to the decision maker, if you are not talking to the budget owner, make sure that the person you are talking finds out who that person is within the company, so that then little by little you get there. Because if you negotiate with the wrong person, you will, and I think Paul Graham was tweeting this the other day, that most of these deals with corporates go to die, essentially, because they just don't go anywhere. So that's not good, right? So, but that's why if there is commitment from both sides, and if you can slowly take those small steps to advance towards a deal that both the startup and the corporate can commit to, then you are in a better place than from a startup side trying to force a huge deal that you will never close. So I think it's all about, I don't know, I'm talking to the big corporate, oh, Cristina, I'm very concerned about this point. Okay, let's remove it from the table. Let's don't touch it. If this is off the table, are you comfortable with this? Yes, okay, let's keep moving forward then. And then you keep advancing until you have that deal. Once you are in the corporate, bringing in those things that before they were not comfortable with, you have more chances to end up agreeing them. Plus you already have hopefully, a paid POC, and you have some revenue and something is happening, and you can already see whether it's worth bringing this other part that you left off the table before.
Great. To circle back to what she said before, I think we need to highlight this part. She sends really good updates on how the company is going, even to people who are not investors. Like I received them, they're pretty specific, like you would report to an investor. Hey, here's the metrics, here's the goals, here's why we fucked up, here's things we didn't expect, here's our hiring needs, and 3-4 bullet points with asks. They're really good. Like I think every company should adopt this. If there's something you should take away from this panel, one of these things is this one. So that's a really great idea. I'm recommending to all the companies I engage with to do that. Ferran, I wanted to move over to the part of business development. You've been working in business development. What are you incorporating in the contracts to help startups as opposed to other partnerships you've got? What concessions do you make to startups you partner with or for Ferran, yeah.
Sorry, which concessions do we do to startups in order to
Yeah.
Make sure that we pay in a maximum of 30 days.
Yeah,
and
okay, that's a good one.
That's something that always comes when they are at startup in the process of scaling. That's a huge problem for them if they cannot get paid. We ensure that there's somebody, that there's ownership and there's a reference, so they know who to deal with, and there's an engagement and disengagement process in case nothing moves forward. So I would say that these are the main things that we try to make easy. But I would answer something, but it's really personal, so I cannot say Philip Morris acts like that. But I try to make sure that there's clarity. So what are we going to do? What do we expect to get out? So what is the metric we want to achieve? Great. And if there's a study, okay, who's going to pay for it? How much it's going to cost? Are we going to share the cost? Are you going to use your facilities and I'm going to put the people? So I try that there's clarity and transparency of what we want to get, by when, and who's going to cover the cost. And I think that this, especially at starting companies, that's really something sensible. I'm thinking of a study that we are doing now, where we spend a lot of time just to define who pays what and how are we going to do it to make sure there's no discussion neither and clarity. And I try to build a personal relationship. That's something that you just can do if you spend time on it, but that there's a trust. I want that they see me as Ferran, representing Philip Morris, but I am Ferran, so they can call me and say, hey, your bill was supposed to be paid and it has not been paid. I want that they feel comfortable to do that. And that's a really personal way of managing, but I believe it makes a difference on making things move.
There's another question I wanted to ask you, because I've been selling to corporates for like 6 years now. And there's always this thing that is, the vendors, sort of like the vendor's pool. There's a lot of bureaucracy. You need to be set up there, lots of paperwork to do, lots of compliance. Yet, if the corporate really needs you, they will just go around all that bullshit. That's called fast track. How do you find the way to get into that fast track?
There's two ways. There's the informal and the formal. We have built internally a formal way for
There's
those
always
that
a formal way.
we have a way, and that cost us a lot of time to my boss, in fact, to build a process for the startups. So if you are a startup and the person who sponsors you tells you that company falls in that bucket, there's less administrative requirements, fastest process to get to the certain amount of people, the shorter times of payment, blah, blah, blah. When that does not exist, the only way to do it is through convincing and networking. I didn't find another way. When I was in the other side, and I'm going to say something, a really bad tactic that we did, which when I was in a startup, we had really tough problems or tough times to get bills paid. Yeah. So we created a fake profile.
Great.
So we created a whatever name, John Doe at mycompany.com. And so I was being the partner, trying to have a good relationship with my client. And I had that email, which I was managing myself, sending emails to that same guy saying, hey, come on, it's been 3 months, you have not paid. But I could have a smiley face still. So that there's also other ways around to push corporates without feeling bad and neither losing the client.
Question for Vueling now. Now, it's a really good one, because that's like an,
so
how you say that,
no
like an
magic.
unwritten law in the industry. There's always a fast track. Like in our company, we've done like 12 fast tracks for big corporations, right? So at the end of the game, you're like, yeah, I know you've got a way around this, so let's just start working. But it needs to be really painful for the company, right? It's like they really needed to buy today and get signed up today, so there's always a way. So how's it working with Vueling? Because perhaps with differences with the other companies around here, it's like you've got a lot of things going on. You've done like innovation challenges. I remember participating in one innovation challenge that was creating sort of like a hackathon on a plane from Barcelona to Milan and back, like 6 years ago, something like that. But you've got acceleration, you've got lots of reselling and partnering, innovation, and all of that. You said the example with the luggage. So how do you speed up this process for startups too? Depending on what channel they come, or if they outreach you, is different than you needing something specific.
Yeah, and coming back on the example on our fast track, so I have my own company, and so I'm like a freelance in Vueling. Okay. That means that I also invoice Vueling on a monthly basis, but my fast track is I just pay a company and then I invoice it to Vueling.
Great.
So that is also a creative way to do stuff.
Do they pay on time?
Yes, because I have my own fast track, so that the...
All right. That's a big innovation.
Yes, no, but there's always a way around, so you have to just be creative. The question was, how do we find
ways to collaborate faster with startups? Because you need to catch up with other players in the industry.
Yeah, no, so the innovation team of Vueling is 14 people, so it's quite a good team. Yeah. There are some changes right now, but the team can really push fast. What we do is we really find the pains of the company. Yeah. So I have 5 researchers in my team, and they go out to the airport, and they shadow customers and they interview people. So working on real pains helps also the business to embrace the solution faster. Yep. So that's how we try to do it. But it's not always easy. So I think everyone who is in corporate innovation can tell you with stories that it's difficult. Yep. We keep on pushing. So the larger your team is, we push with 14 people now. So that helps too.
Another question for you, because you said you've got a lot of requests of collaboration coming on. Of course, everybody wants to have Vueling's money and all of that. And you act as a sort of liaison between the startups and the corporates, which at the very end of the day, that might create a bottleneck.
Yeah.
right? Because you've got too much deal flow, yet you cannot work on all these partnerships and collaborations and whatever.
Yeah.
How do you do it? And do you think that's one of the challenges to overcome as a big industry?
Yeah, I
player?
think it's the biggest challenge. I get my LinkedIn is in an overload every day. So my advice to startups also, because you asked what is your biggest issue on how startups approach you. I have startups who text me every day. It's not helping me to convince to reply. So just have a little bit patience also. How I try, I am the bottleneck, because if you have like 10 requests every day, I cannot evaluate. But what we try to do is to make sure that we work on the biggest pains again, the biggest problems, because there are like 10 solutions. I'm the matchmaker, but if I cannot sell the solution to the business, then it's not going to work. And the business only wants to work on stuff that hurts today. So that's by solving problems today, I gain trust to do more crazy stuff as well. So I need to balance that.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go into like short questions, short answers for everybody. Let's keep a good place. Ferran, question for you: what's the most expensive fuck up you've ever done? Can you quantify it?
1 million euros building a company sponsored by Lanzadera, and after 9 months realizing it's not going to work, no way.
That was a really good one. Jordi, what's yours?
Working for Damm? No, I'm joking.
Oh my God!
I'm joking. No, I'm joking.
Because of the beer, right?
Probably my largest fuck up was rejecting a very good position at Netflix when I worked for Rakuten.
That was really good. I was going to ask, like, the next one is also for you. How do you sign a partnership with FC Barcelona? And you don't know Albert, right?
Well, you know, there's a lot of DNAs about it, you know, NDAs, sorry.
Oh, right.
About NDAs about it, but it was he says so because I was heavily involved in the Rakuten sponsorship agreement when I worked for Rakuten with FC Barcelona. It was it's to write a book about it, but I tell you that it's not like it's been told in the books. So
when is the NDA expiring?
I don't know. I can't tell you any further.
All right. What's the Simone? What's the innovation we should expect from Vueling? Is it something regarding to being on time? Not gonna say that. Sorry, I had to say that.
No, it's good. I had like 4 hours delay last Sunday, so I know. I fly a lot. No, actually, I fly a lot, so I am a customer. I know.
Are you an angry customer as well?
Oh yeah.
All right.
No, what pisses me off the most is that we changed. We publish like a new departure time, and we change that every 10 minutes. It drives me fucking nuts. So I was still at home, and then it's because I had 3 hours delay. I had 3 hours delay. I was still at home, like, okay, let's wait. And then I checked the app, and it was, no, we are boarding now. Your flight is on time. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And then okay, so yes, that is definitely something I want to fight for. It's not an easy one. For me, what is most important that we also start to think a little bit about the future, because I think the mayor of Barcelona already said that everybody who works in governmental areas and travels to Madrid is not allowed to take a flight anymore, has to take the train. So, so this is what's happening. And I think this is my personal thing that I want to have on the agenda, that we start to become aware of what is happening, and that people should not fly that often. And maybe we should rethink what we're doing, not flying, but maybe bringing experiences to customers, and that might be that it's virtual or via ground transportation, not flying.
I wanted to test the waters here, because one of the most vocal people against Vueling ever is the former COO, Vicente Martí. He IPO'd Vueling, basically, and he's always on Twitter like, fuck Vueling, you're so late, whatever, I'll miss the flight, whatever. He's all the time racing. It's like, dude, you used to work at that company, so that's not very nice. It was like, but, I don't like them anymore, so I wanted to test the waters here. Ferran, I wanted to ask you, there's a lot of, when you talk to corporates, and I'm sorry to say this is a huge, that's a big opinion, right? Every corporate I talk to, they say, we're like a startup. It's like, no, dude, you're not a startup. When's this gonna end?
So what's the question? Sorry.
When is this bullshit gonna end? Like, why do corporates say that all the time? Like, we're like a startup.
Because it's an innovation theater. They want to get close to the startup. They don't know why. So they have to talk the language, and that's what you say. But that, if you are a good startup, you're able to filter that and say, that goes nowhere.
Cristina, what's your best advice for entrepreneurs here to raise funds? Because you're going through some serious funding right now. What's your best advice?
I would say, obviously, focus on build a great company that people need, with a product that people need. I think and also back to communication, make sure you are very clear when you communicate your value proposition, because very often when, as founders, we explain our product to investors don't actually understand what we do or why we do it or why people should care about it. So make sure that's super crystal clear.
Great. One last question for you is, do you think that being a local here and speaking the language is opening you doors to the corporate industry as well? Like you're able to reach new partnerships or whatever just because you're a local from here? That's a thing.
I would actually say that, and I don't know if that's the right answer, but it helps the fact that the company is incorporated in the UK, that I've lived many years in the UK, and that when we reach out as a UK company, and I think that actually opens more doors. Because we feel that we've actually been very well received here.
Okay. One last question for everybody is, what's your useless superpower? All right? Something you do exceptionally well, and it's like, why do I know this? What do I do this for? I can give you an example or two if you want, but try to come up with really...
So I would say, I don't think it's useless, but it's definitely a superpower, and it's the fact that I'm always very calm no matter what's going on around me. In my previous company, we were a payroll company, and sometimes the system would crash on a Friday before a long weekend, and people had to get paid, and we weren't sure if they were going to get paid, and it was a lot of stress, but somehow, you always manage to say, it's going to be okay, no worries, and,
No, that's a useful one. Think about it. Ferran, you're going to think about it, and I'm going to come back to you. Too useful.
You said useless, so what I do a lot that is useless for business is I do a lot of animal noises, and I've learned that through my son.
That's one of the best answers I've ever heard.
You said useless, so...
That's really useless. That's extremely useless. It's really good. That's the kind of things that we're looking for in this question.
Well, I know I'm a big expert on the Bulgarian national team on 1994.
Great.
I was a big fan of Bulgaria team, and I tend to explain the lineup.
Yeah. Can you say it backwards?
And I imitate very much. I think I imitate very well Jose Maria Garcia, and this is, I don't know, that is pretty useful actually.
Can I challenge you here? Can you imitate Jose Maria Garcia and say the lineup for one of the Bulgarian teams in the World Cup of the US?
No, it doesn't matter.
Come on, at least say the lineup. Say the lineup.
No, I just tell you that I'm a big fan of Trifon Ivanov, Lechkov, Lubodas Penev, Risto Stoikov, etc., and also Parafita. But no one understands here. No.
You need more beer for that, right?
There's a lot of foreigners, that's why you don't understand. That's not because I have.
Simone?
So actually I have two.
Okay, great, go for it.
So I'm really good in drinking kava. And the second one is I'm really good in doing Sudoku. Useless, but and the combination is really good.
The combination is it's really good. Cristina, your turn to redeem yourself. Your answer is what separates us from the beer. So no pressure.
Well, then definitely my useless superpower is that I love singing, but I cannot sing. And my colleagues hate me for that when I'm with my headphones, and sometimes I'm there doing my work and I'm mumbling something, and they're like, Cristina, shut up, please.
So you sing at the office?
The office.
That's why your employees are asking for remote work?
I think so.
All right, please, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for these amazing people. Thank you. There's nothing more. I don't know what you're waiting for, but like the beer and the catering is over there. Now, thank you for coming. I think this was a pretty successful case for the first Corporate Innovation Summit. Then again, huge thanks to Estrella Damm for being our partners here. Thank you to the sponsor, FI Group. Thank you to all the volunteers who made it possible. Thank you for being here. Let's go and network tonight. All right, thank you very much.